dredging or not dredging the PCBs in the Hudson River. That process took 30 years from the day Senator Moynihan got the First Amendment passed to the point in time when EPA finally made this decision that resulted in initiation of cleanup activities. It's not one of the better stories in terms of governmental action on behalf of protection of the environment. So I actually began in the environmental field. My portfolio included energy, but in those days energy didn't have the same cachet certainly that it has nowadays. Over time, as Pradeep talked about in my bio, you migrate from the environmental area into the energy area, which is fairly natural. The two of them are intimately integrated along with that economic development. The other observation I'd make is Carol was talking about the cost of the SREC program. I don't know what the cost of the program is, and I think that is one of the big issues that we need to get to the bottom of. And we're doing analysis at NYSERDA to try to get a better feel, get our arms around the cost of the SREC. But I've worked with Carol for a long time. I actually helped Carol in the creation of her organization. So if Carol says that SREC only adds 39 cents a month to your electric bill, I'm not going to quarrel with her, but I will quarrel with her as to where you can find a cup of Starbucks coffee for 39 cents.
I was talking about the total
If you can, I'm sure Pradeep's boss, Dr. Cagliaros, would love to know that location. Most of you, I think, in the audience are probably very familiar with NYSERDA. I noticed that a couple of my colleagues are here in the audience. Jeff Peterson right here. Jeff, I think, has been in one of these sessions before. I walked in with Judy Johnfeld in the back there. And, Jeff and Judy are typical of the type of folks we have at NYSERDA. The first thing is they're incredibly bright. They're all brighter than I am. They know their technologies a whole lot better than I do, which is a godsend to all of you as well as to me. But as I said, that's kind of typical of the type of folks that we have at NYSERDA. We have a wonderful collection of people that scan the range of various technologies. And that speaks to another aspect of what NYSERDA is about. We are not in the business of picking technology winners. We don't believe we're qualified enough. I certainly don't believe government is qualified enough to make those decisions. We can help the process along. We can help seed some of these technologies, some of the research and development attendant to the commercialization of some of these technologies. But ultimately, my view is that the marketplace is the best place that will eventually decide which technologies make the most sense. And when I talk about this topic, I like to talk about a concept that I refer to as partnership. I know just last week that the gentleman who's the head of Semitech was here at the Nanotechnology, and he talks about collaboration. Whether you call it partnership, you call it collaboration, it all amounts to the same thing. And what that means is the coming together of what I consider to be the important and essential actors for success if we're going to develop some of these technologies and achieve the economic development and, even more importantly, the job benefits that we all talk about when we're talking about individual technology. And the first part of that collaboration with that technology is government. And we've talked about it a little bit here today. If we're going to realize the benefits of some of these technologies, we do need enlightened governmental policies. And that does not always mean, very often it doesn't mean financial assistance. So I've yet to meet a company that's turned down a check that we're willing to offer them for a particular product or technology. But progressive government policies, policies such as the renewable portfolio standard, what New Jersey may have with respect to the solar rec. But here in New York State, we have not only the renewable portfolio standard, we have the system benefit charge that funds many of the activities that we're engaged in at NYSERDA, supports a lot of our research and development activities in partnership with a number of entities all across the state, including the Nanotech College. We also have the energy efficiency portfolio standard, which is designed to reduce electric consumption in New York State by 15% from projected levels by the year 2015. Altogether, those costs of those three programs literally run into the hundreds of millions, if not $1 billion, here in New York State. And that represents, I think, a substantial investment and commitment by the state, truth be told, really by you and I as ratepayers here in New York State, to the development of the type of technologies that we think are important to realizing the green economy here in New York State. So governmental policies are important, but it's not enough. The second thing that's very important, and it's good to talk about it today considering where we are, is we need the lifeblood, the lifeline represented by the brains, the intelligence, and the initiative of the academic institutions here in New York State, like the Nanotech College. We were very pleased and very proud of the college's success last week in winning the award from the Department of Energy with respect to solar technology. We're also very proud that we committed $5 million of additional funding to that project. And that's just one example of the type of partnerships we look for at the academic community here in New York State. And while I certainly will sing the praises of Nanotech while I'm here at Pretty's home field, so to speak, this is replicated to one degree or another all across the state. And so many different institutions, whether they're the Ivy League colleges or universities like Cornell or Columbia, through the state university system, some of our wonderful private institutions like Syracuse or NYU, but even more importantly, down into the community college level, the state university, the city university as well. That's an important part of this partnership. You can have the most brilliant ideas, as I tell people in the world, the best thought, best new device, you can have the most progressive governmental policies in the world, but unless you can find a way of attracting private sector investment, all those brilliant ideas, all those progressive government policies won't mean twat, so to speak. We will not be creating a single new job here in New York State unless we structure this in such a way that it makes it attractive for industry to invest in New York State. So one of the things you need to do is while we focus on these technologies here and some of the programs that are in place designed to stimulate and promote those technologies, you have to look at the same time, I would argue, at the broader economic picture here in New York State. There's a lot of what's going on beyond simply the piece of the realm, so to speak, that many of us spend our time worrying about, has a direct impact upon the investment community, upon the ability to attract investment, some of the technologies and some of the companies that you were trying to promote. And the governor very much is trying to do that. That's part of what getting a budget passed, a balanced budget passed on time for the first time in a decade or longer was part of. It's also part of what the governor's talked about in terms of property tax assessments. But it's also part of what the governor's talking about, and this is something I would urge you to pay considerable attention to, and that's the development of these regional economic development councils, where the governor, working through the lieutenant governor and the state agencies, are encouraging the regions around the state to come together to develop economic development plans for those regions of the state, to identify economic development clusters that reflect the particular strengths of those regions. You know, right here in the Capital District, for example, we have nanotech. But we're now seeing beyond the nanotech, we're seeing the development of this solar industry. Not just the announcement last week by DOE in terms of the award here to the college, but the announcement by GE, or at least the announcement that slipped out of GE, that they're looking for a site for a manufacturing facility for solar. A different type of solar technology than what Pradeep and his colleagues will be looking at here in nanotech, but nevertheless, you can see it mushrooming. I've been seeing it for the last couple of years down in the Hudson River Valley, where a solar industry, a nascent solar industry, has been struggling to get itself off the ground. You bring something like the award we got last week, you bring an announcement like GE's looking for a manufacturing. They create a momentum unto itself, and it's a momentum that we shouldn't be bashful about touting here in New York State. Because if we don't tout the capabilities and the benefits of doing business here in New York State, you can be darn sure that New Jersey and Massachusetts and Texas and California aren't out there doing so themselves. So you need to bring all three of those partners, in my view, together if we're going to be successful. In terms of the specific programs that we have at NYSERD, I'm not going to go through the whole litany of programs. I'll gladly answer questions that people have. I would certainly like to hear from people, particularly folks are looking to break into this area who have small companies, what we could do to make your lives a little bit easier. And the more specific you can be, I won't have answers for you today, but the more helpful it will be to me as we go back and cogitate down the street at NYSERD. One of the things we have out in the street right now, which is terribly important to our future and our ability to be helpful to you, is something we call the system benefit charge. We put a proposal before the Public Service Commission last year to extend the current system benefit charge program. That's the program the Commission instituted back in the 1990s when they deregulated the utility industry here in New York State. And the Commission reached the conclusion that some of the victims of deregulation in New York State would be some of the programs the utilities used to operate in areas like low-income assistance, research and development, and economic development. So what the Commission did is they imposed a surcharge on you and me as electric and gas rate payers, a small surcharge. It's not 39 cents, it's a little bit more than that. But it's less than the cost of a movie ticket. And those revenues flow to us at NYSERD, and that supports many of the programs that we are engaged in on the economic development side of our agency. The current system benefit charge program is scheduled to expire in June of this year. We filed a petition with the Public Service Commission last year to extend it for another 5 years at the current funding level. The Commission extended the energy efficiency portion of those programs through the current calendar year, but then directed us to develop an operating plan for the other component. The other component is what's most relevant to you. That's our technology and market development programs. It's roughly $70 million a year. We've been engaged in the last couple of months in an extensive outreach, public outreach. We had some sessions here at the college where I think some of the folks here in the room have participated along the way. We will be filing an operating plan with the Public Service Commission by the end of this month that details how we propose to spend that $70 million. That is the money that supports some of these other activities like the clean business incubators that we've established at 6 colleges and universities around the state, including one here at SUNY Albany. Some of these are quite successful. 2 I can point to. The one in New York City has already graduated to either 4 or 5 brand new startup companies from that incubator that's run through New York Polytech. Similarly, out in Syracuse, there's been 3 or 4 companies that we've been able to nurture and, in fact, kick out the door to success in developing small clean tech companies. And we're looking for the similar sort of success out of the Albany one. We have similar programs in Long Island, Buffalo, and Rochester as well. That's just one example of the type of programs that you don't think of as traditionally energy programs. They're not renewable portfolio standard programs. They're not energy efficiency programs. They're business development programs that have a link to the clean technology. So that gives you a flavor for what we're doing. Finally, I'd be remiss, I know we're talking a lot about clean technology or renewable technology. I'd be remiss if I don't at least spend a moment talking about energy efficiency, because there may be some businesses here who are engaged in energy efficiency. Energy efficiency, as much as I love solar and fuel cells and offshore wind, the economic reality today is that energy efficiency still represents the most cost-effective investment we can make in alternative energy. We spend hundreds of millions of dollars a year through NYSERDA. We've been over the years not the least bit reluctant to criticize sometimes our colleagues at the Public Service Commission over some of the details of the energy efficiency programs, but we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that it's been the leadership of Gary Brown and his colleagues at the Public Service Commission that has provided the foundation and the funding to support the energy efficiency programs that we're engaged in, as well as renewable portfolio standards and system benefit charge. So we like to think we work pretty well together at the state level. Could we work better? Of course we can, and we're trying our best. Pat Foy's been brought in by the governor as the Deputy Secretary for Economic Development. He spent time in the energy field. He used to be the chairman of the Long Island Power Authority. He knows this stuff. He's a good supporter of what we're doing at NYSERDA. I think that we can see us even more visible and more effective, hopefully, in this field. And we look forward to helping all of you, at least some of you in this room, to grow your businesses and even more importantly, create those jobs, not in New Jersey, but in New York City. Thank you.
Yes. What I'd like us to do is use the mic because we're recording the session, and unless you speak from the mic, we cannot hear you on the video. Any questions based on what you've heard so far?